Greetings, and welcome to episode 29 of Ending the Sexual Dark Age. I'm JV Altheras, and this time around we're continuing our tour of non-monogamy. Today we have some special guests with us on the show. I've got Shara sitting here right next to me already, instead of waiting till later. Shara, say hello.
Hello.
Oh, wow, what the hell? Also joining us via Skype, we have Cooper and Ginger from Life on the Swing Set.
Hello.
Another really cool podcast that focuses on swinging. So they're very big on alternative sexuality, openness towards sexuality, but their focus all revolves around swinging. Cooper, Ginger, you want to say hello to the audience and let them know a little bit about who you are?
Jen, you go first.
Oh, I get to go first.
I like it when you go first.
It is nice when you let me go first. Well, I'm Ginger from Life on the Swing Set. We enjoy podcasting with a group of fun, open sexies, and we do our best to just put our perspectives out there, most specifically around different types of non-monogamy.
And I'm Cooper Beckett. I run the site, and I would say host, corral the show.
Oh, I like
true.
that.
And I'm also the one that you hear most because I'm louder than everybody else.
Oh, I wouldn't. I know what that feels like. I've been louder than everyone else for most of my life.
I'm the narcissist on the show, just for your information.
Shara's over here pointing fingers.
I didn't want to say it out loud just in case. You know?
But I do want to say, when I first conceived of the show, it was a show about swinging. But as I've developed the show and the website, it's been, we are an umbrella for all facets of non-monogamy. We are very much about expanding sexuality, and I hesitate to pigeonhole anything into swinging. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, you know, that actually feeds right into one of my questions that I had for you. How would you guys define swinging, or how much do you feel that definitions are appropriate as opposed to polyamory, general open-minded group sex? I mean, do you like to use different definitions for the different types of non-monogamy, or do you prefer to lump it together?
Well, we are big proponents, and we talk about this a lot on the show because Ginger and myself, we feel that we're both part of sort of the new wave of swinging. You know, in swinging, when it first developed, was all about swapping partners and had very little connection. I mean, you look at swinging in the 70s, and it was all about sex for sex's sake, and that's it. And we sort of feel that now there's a new wave of swingers who are also looking for friends and relationships, even if they're afraid to say the word relationship in terms of what they're doing. They want reoccurring partners because it's a little safer, it's a little less stressful, and you can really develop a very strong bond with people when you're having sex with them, obviously. And so that pulls us more in the direction of polyamory. And now, Ginger, I realize I just spoke for you.
Which is interesting because as you were doing that, one of the things that you and I haven't talked about, Coop, lately is kind of that whole piece of the puzzle around swinging and as it's been defined. And it's a great question around the labels, because I've been thinking lately and kind of reviewing and revising my opinion, because I think in the past, when we have this conception of swinging in the 70s, or, you know, whenever we want to say, you know, whether it was like really early on or the revival in the 70s of swinging.
And just out of Ginger and I just pinpointed where we think swinging began in 1942.
Yes.
Oh, really?
So that's where we think it began, but we have no data to back that up. So I'm going to let her go on.
Yeah. So thank you, Coop, for bringing that up, because that was kind of a brain skip. So, you know, swinging in the 70s being this more anonymous, you know, the term of swapping, and it was really just sex related. We think that, but we don't really know.
That's very true.
mean, you know, the reality is we use labels to just try to get a handle on things. And most often, I think labels don't really do what we're doing justice, whether it's swinging or polyamory or any type of other consensual non-monogamy. And so because we can't fit into those pigeonholes now, I'm questioning whether folks were even fitting into those pigeonholes then. Of course, there are swingers who just swing for sex's sake, and that's great because that's how they roll and that's how they do it. And I think there are also other swingers who enjoy friends with benefits. I think there are polyamorists who enjoy NSA sex on the side. I mean, there are folks who do it their own different way, and different people will have different answers for what the labels mean to them.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you said that. One of the recurring topics or recurring themes on our show is to be very careful about labels. When you put a label on yourself, and you say, I'm a swinger, well, that's almost like deciding to modify your behavior based on the label. You're all of a sudden trying to fit into some little pigeonhole of behavior, whereas I try to encourage people to just do whatever feels right to them. And if they ever want a label, worry about that later. Because it can be dangerous to try and fit into a label.
Mm-hmm. Just like a different aspect of it is submissive/slave. So many people say, am I a submissive or am I a slave? Well, it depends on your, how you determine what a slave is, versus what a submissive is, or what, in my case, what my master would consider slave versus submissive.
Well, and there's also the role play aspect. Whenever you get into something kinky, you can play a scene with two people who have a completely no strings attached connection, and they can play the parts of the master and slave and use the terminology and get into the headspace, even if it's just a one-off scene.
Right.
It's casual sex as long as everything, as long as everything's safe about it. So that's another role playing brings in an even further degradation of the labels.
Well, one of the terms we've been trying to use, and it was brought to us, I believe, by Shirby Katz, our host, is ethical non-monogamy.
Oh, I like that.
And it is an umbrella term that encompasses what we believe you should be doing in open relationships, ethically having non-monogamous relationships. And the ethical part is the most important part, because that is, you're not doing anything to hurt others. You're doing this for yourself, for growth, for excitement for you and your spouse, you and your partner. And you're thinking about it. That's the most important part, is that you're actually consciously thinking about what you're doing.
I like that.
Yeah, and by default, playing by whatever rules you've agreed to.
Exactly.
Yes.
Many of our listeners are coming from the standpoint of feeling very sexually repressed for a lot of their lives and trying to open up and try new things and explore things that no one has ever had an adult conversation with them about.
Sure.
So for those who are, monogamous, who are curious, what, in your experience, are the most common pitfalls that newbie swingers face? And do you have any advice that'll help them avoid big mistakes that are easy to avoid?
That's a really great question. Yeah. And my answer always tends to be this unsolicited advice to people who I get chatting with at parties, and I find out, oh, it's their first party, and oh, they've been doing this for a month, and so then I monopolize them for the next hour and still in them all the mistakes and experiences that my partner Prof and I have had or experienced. And so one of the things I always say to folks is, what's the rush? Don't rush. Just go slow. People have a misconception that because you step over this line and head to a swinger party, that you have to be sexual with other people. And that's not the case at all. I mean, we have friends who are quote unquote in the lifestyle or would identify themselves as swingers that really only enjoy each other and only play with each other and aren't sexual with anyone else ever. And that's okay. And so it's a safe place to explore if you're partnered with one other person or two other people or whatever your partnership looks like. It's a safe place to explore, and you don't have to do one single thing, but make friends and talk to people and watch and observe, and then go home and talk with your partner and say, wow, that was crazy. What was that like for you? What was that like for me? And that can happen for a long time. And maybe that is what your openness looks like, is only being sexual with one another ever. Maybe not. You may evolve into a different iteration of ethical non-monogamy, but you may not. And so starting slow and just taking your time and enjoying it and learning as you move through that process. And that can even be, the process can start before you would even consider going to a party with fantasy with one another.
Yeah.
And do that and talk about it, talk about it, talk about it, talk about it.
So, Ginger, I'm thinking that a lot of those people that you monopolize their time, they're probably very thankful because
Aw.
Hey,
seriously.
everybody is happy to spend time with Ginger.
Aw, thanks, Coop.
I have no doubt about that.
Aw.
Well, and one of the things that I've talked about many times with Shara, as we've talked about munches, play parties, fetish clubs, etc., we've always told the audience that there's always someone there, whether it's a de facto host or just someone who's running around with some experience looking for the new people. Your first time in a swinger club or a fetish club or whatever, someone is going to come up and say hello to you and say, hey, new people, is there anything I can do for you?
And
It sounds like you're the ones doing that at your parties.
Right. And I think that that's important, being in the lifestyle that we are in. I was very fortunate to have some people that took me underneath their wing and made sure that I was okay. And that was very important to me. So, and showed me the way, basically guided me. And so I would think that people are very, very fortunate that, run into you, Ginger, and you monopolize their time. I think they're very fortunate for that.
One thing
you.
I would say is the most important thing for newbies to remember, in my view, is that you will fuck up. When you change the rules that you've lived by for your entire life, which is what non-monogamy is, you will push the boundary too far at some point. You will accidentally do something that could crush your partner for 24 hours. You will do that. The big thing to remember is what I learned from Tristan Taormino's book, Opening Up, is that you need to change the paradigm in your mind, that there is no end game fuck up. There is nothing that your partner could do that will end your relationship. If you go into it with that point of view, then anything else is just a negotiation.
I like that a lot.
When your partner fucks up, I fucked up several times at the beginning because you don't understand how your partner will react to things until they see them. And you don't know how you'll react to things until you see them. And it might be the most horrifying thing in the world the first time you see your wife getting fucked and maybe you can't get up. And you have this conversation where it's like, look, I felt alone and you were enjoying yourself and I couldn't. But the big thing to remember is no matter what we do, we're going to talk about this and it's going to be okay.
I like that. And I have to say that there was a couple that we decided to meet up with, and JV met with the dominant beforehand to play out how it was going to be for me and the other submissive.
Yeah, that was a fairly structured scene.
It was very structured, but I have to say, you made me feel so important that I actually felt like I was the most important person in that room during the whole event. And it's because of how you handled it. And I tell the audience that listens to us that all the time, because they say, well, how do we, enter into this and that? And I think the most important thing is for the dominant to make sure that the submissive is comfortable. And you spoke with me afterwards. You spoke with me. I mean, he came up to me during the whole thing. Are you okay? And, whispered in my ear. Not necessarily that anybody else knew what was going on, but I knew, and I felt like the most important person. So,
well, what I try to stress is that group sex, when you're in a relationship, when you're part of a couple, group sex is an adventure you go on with your playmate. And you just always have to make sure that they're right there with you and not, as you were saying a minute ago, off someplace in a bad headspace because they didn't reacted to something differently than they expected. It happens all the time, especially in kink.
Yeah.
right.
They play. I have had a lot of scenes where somebody really wanted to do something before the scene, and then it got into it, and it wasn't what they expected. We had to totally change gears.
Mm-hmm.
And it also happened. I get a lot of emails saying, I'm afraid that this girl's going to be better than I am, and he's going to want her, even though she has a dominant already. How do I know that that person isn't going to try to sneak in and take my dominant away. And I said, well, if you're secure with your dominant, you don't have to worry about that.
Right.
You know, you have to be secure with your dominant or your significant other, whatever the case may be. You have to be comfortable with knowing that your relationship with them is secure, because if they really love you, if they really care about you, that isn't going to happen. No one else is going to be able to come in between you in that relationship.
Exactly.
And do you guys have any tips for dealing with jealousy as a newbie swinger? Because it's good. It's always part of the equation.
Jealousy is rough.
Yeah.
And I've written some pretty extensive articles on jealousy for our website because I put a lot of thought into it. Because when we first started this, my wife and I didn't feel jealousy for any of the reasons I thought I would. You know, the sex with other people thing, no jealousy, period. I was cool. The only times I felt jealousy were when we would be out at a meet and greet at a bar or out at a house party, and she was getting all this attention because she's gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of hanging out because I'm shyer than she is, believe it or not. So I was feeling jealousy about that, which made me realize that jealousy it's about something that I'm upset with myself about. It's not about her. It's about me. And therefore, if it's something I'm upset about, I can work towards fixing this problem. And I believe that jealousy is like anger. You need to work on jealousy management. And jealousy is not something that is a default. It's been ingrained in us in society that you're supposed to be jealous, period. You just look at sitcoms and how the wives are always upset when the guys turn their head at the sexy girl. That's what we are supposed to do in our lives, is be jealous.
That's what the sexual dark age wants us to do, as I would normally say on the show.
Exactly. So jealousy, like anger, is something you just have to first be aware of. I'm feeling this. Then ask why you're feeling this. Then ask how I can stop feeling this. And everything in swinging comes down to communication with your partner. When I feel that I'm jealous that she is more popular, I ask her, can you make sure you're aware of where I am? And if I look uncomfortable, if I look upset about anything, can you just come over and give me a little extra loving? You know, and
excellent.
If you can identify your triggers, you can really easily manage jealousy. So now I very rarely get those little twinges of jealousy.
It's interesting as I listen to you talk, Cooper, because it's one of those things that is so interesting to me. And you said it as you were talking around it. But I mean, in some ways, and this might get a little bit out there, but bear with me. Jealousy, agreed completely that it is ingrained in us that we should be jealous. If you love someone, of course you're jealous. Like, that's just the way it's supposed to be. And I've chosen to reject that completely. And jealousy actually, in my world, doesn't exist. But the things that those triggers that you mentioned, Coop, those types of things can exist. Feeling left out can exist. Feeling, just all those different triggers can be there. But if you just reframe it as taking away jealousy completely and going straight to the trigger, because that's really what you're doing when you're communicating with your partner, is you're feeling a feeling, and we have this umbrella term of jealousy, but it's not really, that's not useful. What's useful is looking at, why am I feeling unhappy or unsatisfied with what's going on? And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I was just going to say, it sounds to me, Ginger, like what you're saying is the word jealousy is very similar to the scenario that Cooper mentions about putting yourself into a category that, a label, that the labels are out there. Jealousy basically is a label. And what you do is you refuse that label and go after the trigger point. Is that right? I mean, basically.
That is. And you can almost always talk your way through those trigger points, like Coop said, when he's feeling like he wants Marilyn's attention, he gets Marilyn's attention. instead of sitting and stewing and assuming that, well, I'm just jealous and this is what happens.
And that is something that came from time.
Sure.
At the beginning, I didn't go get her attention. I just sulked. And that's on me.
And can I ask you how long you were in that, how long you've been married?
Oh, my wife and I have been together 11 years now.
Okay.
And we've been in the lifestyle for about 2.5.
Okay. So after 11 years of being married, it basically, it took some time because it didn't necessarily happen in the beginning, or maybe it did because you weren't really, even though you weren't doing any necessarily swinging in the beginning, the situation might have been you were still at a bar and, she was getting a lot of attention. Did that happen early in your relationship or?
Actually, with my wife, swinging completely changed her 100%. She went from being a very shy, reserved, high neckline clothing, not showing off her sexuality type person to, I hesitate to use the word sex pot.
Why? Why do you hesitate to use that
Yeah,
word?
that's fairly tame these days.
So now, I mean, she was never comfortable with her sexuality, period. And that was because of our favorite sexuality non-motivator religion.
Oh, yes.
And growing up in a religious environment. So we never had that. There was never any... and if anything, I wanted her to dress sexier so people would be jealous of me.
You know what? I tell that to the guys and to the girls so many times. Generally, as long as a guy knows for sure that he's taking a woman home, he wants other guys looking at his woman and wishing they could have a piece of that.
Unless he's a huge asshole.
Right. But these are one of the healthy ways, and it's not necessarily feed the ego, but you can give it a Scooby snack once in a while.
Absolutely. But I mean, so at these jealous moments, and I think what it is you have this idea of what jealousy is, but it's also almost identical to what envy is, and it's just the desperation to have something that somebody else has.
It's fascinating to me as we talk about it because and this is entirely unhelpful. I'll preface what I'm about to say with that. Entirely unhelpful. I have, and we've talked about this on Life on the Swing Set. I have never been a person who's experienced jealousy. And why? I don't know.
It's because you're perfect. We know.
Oh, no.
You know what, Ginger? I'll join you in that because I am the same way.
Okay,
I just
good.
don't have the jealousy circuit in me. And Shara can tell you that. I guarantee she has never seen any shade of jealousy in me.
Never. Ever.
Isn't that okay? So there
and I'm
you
jealous
go.
of that.
So what we all strive for is that term that came out of San Francisco in the 60s, compersion.
Compersion.
And compersion, for those who don't know, is the opposite of jealousy. It's a term that was built because there never was an opposite of jealousy.
Oh, interesting.
And the opposite of jealousy is I get overwhelming pleasure from my partner, my friend's pleasure. You look at there's some very interesting quirks in this lifestyle, and I've been with couples who get jealous. Like if I'm with a couple and they want to be with that couple tonight or whatever, they get jealous because I get their time. When for me, if I'm with a couple and I really like them and I'm with another couple and I really like them, I want those two couples to get together because I see something awesome in both of them. And I think they would have a great time together. Like when Ginger and her husband came to visit us in December, and the first thought I had was, I want to throw them a party because I want them to meet all the cool people I know. And I want all the cool people I know to get to meet them.
Absolutely. And my husband Prof and I do the same thing. When we meet those folks, we want to connect those dots. We want those people to become, if anything, just platonic, open swinger friends, or take it to the next level, whatever works. But we're very generous that way. And it is like you're swimming around in the compersion. I've realized that my voyeuristic tendencies, which I so deliciously enjoy over and over again.
Yeah, Shara's pointing at me on that one too. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I could just sit and watch. And when you have these if you're into group experiences, when you're having these group experiences, you are able to kind of sneak away a little bit and just watch, which I enjoy doing very much just
I love
from,
that.
I love to watch. But for the most part, I just get and I'm kind of coming off of one of these experiences very recently, actually, and just watching people enjoying and just being so thrilled that they are all in this place of pleasure and that, new people met friends that night or whatever. And it's compersion. I mean, we just finally can put our finger on it, and really,
Yeah,
I think
I
the more
love that
we do it, the
term.
better.
Oh,
yeah.
When we discovered that, I think that also was something I learned from Tristan Term, and it's such a wonderful aspirational term. If you feel jealousy, it's wonderful to know there's this idea that's the beautiful opposite of it, and you can work towards that.
And embrace that. I like
embrace that. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. And I tend to, I've had similar to what Ginger was just talking about. I am very much a voyeur, as Shara knows. My voyeurism is, I'll say, pretty expansive. I don't need, at no time do I require a sexual climax to enjoy voyeurism. It's not something that I need to do as a part of play. I like watching, it's the same reason I like watching my women getting fucked by other people, because I get to see the looks on their faces. It's Ginger said, watching other people enjoy each other.
Yeah.
And having other people enjoying themselves as a spectacle is something I'm just always happy to sit back and watch and enjoy.
Right.
And I think I've always been a people watcher. I mean, if I go into a restaurant or, wherever I'm at, I tend to love to watch people and see what's going on in their life, basically. And that's why, I've never really had a chance to be a voyeur. I think I would enjoy it. So I think I better.
What are you talking about? You've never had. What the
really.
fuck are you talking about?
Not really, because I've
Who
usually
are you trying to sell that shit to?
No, really, I haven't had a chance, because usually I'm in the middle.
Except at all the fetish clubs and the play parties.
But I usually end up being played with.
And the piles of naked people.
Yes, but I usually
You've
end up
never just sat back and watched?
Most of the time I end up getting pulled in pretty fast. So. I really...
the life of a sexy woman.
I mean, remember...
Yeah, that's quite a cross you have to bear. Okay. Next time we're at a play party, I'm just going to tie you to a chair and let you watch for a while.
Okay.
We'll get your voyeurism experience.
Okay. Well, I mean, like... I'm going to use, I don't know if I should say her actual name, but, the little tiny one with the flogger, and she ended up flogging me. How long were we in the room before that ended up happening? I mean, we walked in, and that was the first time you met her.
That was so adorable. This girl was like 4'10", with an awesome figure,
she's
with
beautiful.
a flogger with extra long tails.
Yeah,
I mean, she's walking, and the tails are dragging on the ground while she's walking across the room with her flogger.
And and she's really into floggers, so she always believes in having the most beautiful floggers. And she is just one of the most beautiful women I've ever met. But she had a connection with me, and so I think she asked you for permission if she could, flog me. But
yeah,
I mean,
pretty much as soon as we got there.
I kind of forget the rest of the evening, because that's my favorite part of the evening. But we weren't there very long before I introduced you to her.
Well, orgasms inhibit memory formation.
Glad somebody said it, because I don't remember anything.
I like you, Ginger.
Shara comes a lot, and sometimes it is.
That's a good place to be.
It is.
It
yes,
is.
I try to encourage it, and I've always said, all great sex revolves around the female orgasm. With a happy pussy, anything is possible.
I agree.
Ginger, does your husband have any jealousies, or no? It didn't sound like he did.
No, we are we're each other's biggest fans. And when we walk into a room or a party or go on a vacation, a lifestyle vacation together, I mean, we're basically like talking each other up to other people. Like I'll see someone and I'll think, or I'll hear him say, "Ooh, she's hot," or I'll see someone who I know is like right up his alley, and immediately I'm like, come here, and drag him over and introduce them, and facilitate the conversation and bring them drinks and, give them their space. And he does the same for me. I mean, we're just each other's biggest fans, and there's nothing better for me than to see his pleasure. And I think he feels the same even more so. I mean, he's even more generous, I think, than I am. So,
And don't you think if more people were like that, if they could get rid of the religious issues, that the world would just be such a happier place, because everyone would be worrying about taking care of their significant other, making sure that they're happy and enjoying their happiness, and they'd come back home and have just a wonderful evening together. You know,
right.
I just think if people could let some of that stuff go, it'd be so much better.
Oh, more orgasms are the solution to world peace. I think that's undisputed.
Agreed.
John Lennon was trying to tell us that decades ago, and we just didn't listen. It might be because he also claimed to be the walrus.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's a credibility issue there.
Yeah.
Which walrus are you? Why this particular walrus? From the aspect or from the angle of coming into swinging for the first time, especially in America, but throughout the Western world, largely due to advertising, people have a lot of body image issues.
Oh, yeah.
In the swinger community, how much focus do people put on body type? And I've advised listeners that you need to be comfortable being naked in front of other people as kind of a precursor. If you want to be able to do group play at all, you've got to be comfortable around other people naked with the lights on. Yeah. And because group sex can be done in the dark, but usually someone gets a surprise they weren't looking for.
Well, I would say there's we've talked before about the swingers I call the beautiful people.
Okay.
And this is a very difficult thing to explain, because I think Ginger is absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
But she is not one of the beautiful people. One of the beautiful people are the people who, like in high school, were the aloof people who didn't want to associate with other people. Beautiful people in swinging are the ones who are very specifically looking for, I want the sexiest fucking people there are. They better have giant tits. They better be tan. They better be skinny. Those are the beautiful people, and they really only associate with each other. They don't step out.
Okay.
You know? Then there's everybody else, who are the awesome people.
Right.
And these are the people I want to fuck. The big difference is you never get the feeling that all there is their beauty.
Right.
And as you learn more about people, they get sexier and sexier and sexier and sexier. I mean, it's very important to me to have an emotional connection.
I agree.
Not necessarily. See, people get freaked out in swinging when we use the word relationship and emotion.
Yeah, I can see those being tripwires.
But I see where you're coming from. I like that.
Yeah, and I mean, if I can't have a conversation with someone, I don't want to fuck them.
I mean, don't you think that when instant messaging became popular, I'd have to go back to start off with AOL, and they had their chat rooms, and that people became very emotionally attached to the people, that by the time they actually met them in person, they didn't really care what they looked like, because they became attached to them emotionally just by conversation.
Absolutely. I will say very, very specifically that, yes, by and large, the swinging lifestyle starts with physical attraction.
Okay.
Because the only way you meet people in the swinging lifestyle, unless you're meeting people through friends, is you see their pictures and profile online, or you see them across the bar, or you see them across an orgy at a sex party. And the reason you approach is because you have some sort of attraction. So I won't sugarcoat and say it's not at all about attraction, because it is about attraction. I will just say that I've been with a wide variety of body types. And I've been with people who, when I first saw pictures, I wasn't initially attracted to them, but when I talked to them, or just seeing people in motion, is much different than pictures. There's no telling what's going to attract you to someone.
Agreed with that. I think that is ultimately what it comes down to when it comes to letting people off the hook about body image. I mean, I will say about body image, ultimately, you can go into the swinging world not yet comfortable being naked. Mm-hmm. You can do that and move into comfort, but what you do need to do, in my humble opinion, is feel good in your body, whatever that means. And I think, Coop hit it on the head. We don't know what attracts us really to other people. I mean, we might all each have our types and whatever, but the beauty of ethical non-monogamy is, wow, I get to have this body type and this body type and this body type. I don't have to pick, this is the person I'm going to partner with, so now I can have sex with them, and now I'm going to, you get variety. And so, or you can choose to indulge in variety. And that's the thing that I find to be fascinating is I look at bodies and I love beautiful bodies, but when I say beautiful bodies, that is a wide range for me. Now, when I was picking a partner, when I thought, okay, I have to find this person, and
you're buying the car you're going to drive for the rest of your life, right?
Exactly. You're kind of like, okay, well, you're looking for a life partner match. When you're looking for a fun, healthy sexual partner, you can indulge in, wow, he's really hot and he's so tall. I've never been with a guy who's that tall. Or, wow,
she's time to climb a tree.
Yeah, exactly. Or she's so stunningly gorgeous. And, one of my newer found, I don't know if it's a fetish or if it's just an attraction, but it's because it's so rare these days, women having smaller breasts. And so that athletic body with smaller breasts, I see women on the street with that kind of figure, and it just turns my head immediately, because that is the thing you get when people are more body image conscious, is they're going for that hourglass figure, bigger breasts, whatever,
right.
and they're moving toward enhancements and things like that. But yet I'm also, the attraction goes from way down one end of the continuum to the other. And really, and I'm going to circle back around to Cooper saying, you just don't really know, because you might see that person from across the way and they are really hot stuff to you. And then you get chatting with them and you just want to be friends with them because that chemistry just isn't quite there. Or you might see someone from across the room and think, all right, that's an interesting character. And immediately when you start to chat with them or whatever it is, like the pheromones kick in or whatever, you're like, must tear their clothes off now. and it just hits you out of nowhere. And so
I think I'll take a slice.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll follow up on that and the body image question with, besides general body image, I would say the thing I get asked about and people are most concerned about is the size of certain things.
Oh, yes. Our second episode, you will probably enjoy my second episode a lot. It's called Size Matters. And I pretty brutally approach that issue, but it is just such a terribly huge and unnecessary concern.
Right.
I got a lot of voicemails on that too.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing you see and the thing I've seen is I'm pretty comfortable sitting right in the middle of the spectrum of everybody's penises I've seen. And that's what was interesting to me is I've seen a lot of people who just really, really know how to use a tiny, tiny penis. And that's really impressive. And I've seen some idiots who can't figure out how to get that 10-inch thing to do anything for them.
Agreed.
Well, yeah, actually 10 inches is a handicap.
I agree.
Big handicap.
And so, I mean, that's the thing is, and Ginger, you were really nailing this, is variety is really an absolutely wonderful motivator. You can be with any size. Like, I'm a tit man, but it's not about big tits. It's just about tits.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so any size from nothing to ginormous, I'm happy with anywhere along that spectrum.
I kind of agree with you on that.
and I think most, I will say the people I have met pretty much fall into that idea in terms of cock size. It's just as long as you're engaging and as long as you're focusing on your playmate's pleasure, which you should always be doing in every aspect of your sexual life, you should be focusing on your playmate's pleasure. When I was concerned at the beginning that maybe my cock was smaller, I made sure to do 45 minutes to an hour of just oral on my partners because I knew that was my A game and I led with that.
Well, you know what? There's as I have often said on the show, make sure she comes first.
Exactly.
And cock size is irrelevant.
Yeah.
That's a big tripping point for a lot of guys because society brainwashes us to think so, and because for most guys, everything they learned about other guys' cocks they learned in the high school locker room, which is really
And porn.
Yeah, and porn. Yeah, which is two terrible, terrible sources.
Right.
The last bastion of true homophobia, I think, is in the high school boys' locker room.
I agree.
But yeah,
it's the other damage in high school.
Yeah, guys make a way bigger deal out of cock size than women do, and women make a way bigger deal out of tit size than guys do. And it's one of those things that the numbers almost line up in reverse. It's actually 70% of women report that they are happy with the size of their man's cock. 70% of guys report the same thing about their woman's tits. And when you ask people if they think their partner is satisfied, it's 30%.
Wow.
It's a pretty shocking distinction. And the numbers are pretty much the same going both ways.
Well, just so you know, I'm very happy.
No, I'm quite happy with
Excellent.
As far as finding people to swing with, a little while ago, Ginger was talking about swingers parties, and I'm glad that you were kind of trying to dispel a lot of people feel a lot of hesitation, and they feel like going to a swinger party or to a fetish club is signing them up for some kind of activity. And that's what Ginger was saying earlier, that that's just not the case. If people are not really to the point, if they're curious, but not really to the point where they feel like they can go out to even a casual gathering, are there any websites or internet resources that you guys have found that have been very helpful for you?
The one I will recommend, and only because it's I've been on so many swinger websites now, and was not happy with really any of them.
Okay.
Just in terms of, I'm a web guy. I designed the swing set. And when I look at a website and say, yeah, that looks like 1997 pretty much, that upsets me.
I know your pain.
Functionality is very important to me, especially because, I talk with a lot of people in the swinging lifestyle who don't know how to navigate a website and use it effectively. So when you add to that confusing websites, then you're going to get a lot of people who could be enjoying this lifestyle and meeting a lot of people that just can't even figure out how to send a photo. So we partnered with Cassidy.com. And the reason we partnered with them is because I felt so strongly about what they were doing. They created a website that's easy to use and reminds me a lot of Facebook.
Okay.
And so it's transferring all the stuff you already know how to do on the web. Share photos, befriend people, all that stuff. And it's applying it to swinging.
Nice.
And they have party listings on there. They have club listings. They're still getting their bearings. They're growing. But right now, I believe they just became the third largest swinging website in the country, which is fantastic. They've only been around a little while. So if you sign up through SwingSet, we get a little bonus. So that'd be awesome. But even if you don't, sign up for Cassidy because they have the best overall presentation and information. And what you really want to look for when you're new is a group of people that you can learn from. And my wife and I were very lucky to very quickly find this weekly swinger gathering at a regular vanilla bar. And we met so many people there. And through those people we met other people. And because of that, our little group is very incestuous. But it's wonderful to have that community of people who all know and like and sort of vouch for each other. Because we walked into this bar not knowing anything about anyone, and the de facto leader of this group sort of said, "I'll let you know when someone you shouldn't talk to." And the first night we were there, this guy was hitting on my wife. And he looked at me and he gave me the cut it off signal. Later he said, "Yeah, that's one of the single guys who hang out here. Creepy. Don't go anywhere near him." Perfect.
Nice.
That's what I encountered by going to the lunches. In the lifestyle is they would tell me, stay away from him, stay away from her. This is a good person. This is, and it was people that I knew I could trust, that they're not going to purposely keep me away because they want to keep me to themselves. It was people that I could trust.
Don't try to do it yourself.
Agreed. You both hit on the point that it's interesting because most folks, when they get started, feel like it's less pressure to meet someone online and go on a date.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great and that's fun, but it can feel very stressful and very full of pressure to meet just with another couple or another, man or woman, whatever kind of scenario you're looking for. And it seems very intimidating to go out and be part of a group, but it's so much more helpful when you're starting to just really, take that leap and know that
you're not alone.
You're not alone, but you also haven't crossed the line you can't step back across. I mean, just because you went,
that's the biggest
just
thing.
because you went to a gathering, so be it. You went to a gathering, and if you find that it wasn't for you, done deal. Just don't, you're done. But it's not the easier route to just start to go on dates. It's a way to do it, and certainly you can go for it.
It's much harder.
It's tricky.
Tricky. I think that feeds into it. Online dating in itself is very complicated, and certain personality types take to it very easily, and certain people don't. But it does have a lot of complications. So, in essence, if you're trying to get into swinging or group play, and your first experiences you're all going to try and do through online dating, you're double complicating it for yourself. You're trying to navigate two very strange sets of new parameters.
I will say, though, sorry, Jen.
I was just going to say, once you do have your feet wet, though, the dating gets so much easier and so much more fun. I mean, Prof and I just went on a date, and we actually blogged about it, and it was we didn't even know their names when we were in the car on the way to the bar. And it was just like they were, been doing it for years. We've been doing it for years, really laid back about it. And we know that we're going to walk into this bar. We're going to meet these folks who seem like we have some things in common with, because we can read not just the text, but between the lines of their profile. And we just walk in and know we might have a glass of wine. We might have two. We might say goodbye, part ways, and never see one another again, or we might become friends, or who knows. And so you just let yourself completely off the hook once you know how that process works. It's a very useful process once you are deeper into the lifestyle. I mean, obviously, that's a great way to meet folks.
How do you, Ginger, know, like you said, the two of you went and didn't even know their names as you're walking, was it their names, or didn't know what they...
Well, we didn't, we had seen pictures of them. It's not our typical, that was the very first time that's ever happened. We tend to move very slowly when it comes to meeting new people for dates from an online connection, just because we enjoy going to parties. So we meet people face to face and get to enjoy that cocktail party like atmosphere. So that's what we enjoy. But this particular case, it was just opportunistic. We were going out on a date, Prof and I, and these folks, it was just kind of a last second sort of thing. And we exchanged pictures and we had exchanged messages previous to this particular day, but it just happened. And it was actually really funny because I did say to Prof in the car, I said, "So what are their names?" And he said, "I forgot to ask." And so we knew a lot about them already, about their interests and what they enjoyed and what they looked like, but we just, didn't know their names, which we learned.
So when you meet them, how do you know, let's say you really like them, but Prof didn't. How do you know that, and how do you deal with that? I mean, like, how is there a signal that the two of you might have when you're going in, and so I mean, because obviously, if one's not interested, then you may not do anything.
Right. Well, and again, we just our particular style of play, we tend to get to know people quite a bit before we choose to become intimate. So for us, we know that that's going to just be a night out. And that we'll retire to our separate residences and perhaps see each other again. It's more at the parties that we have to be more on the fly about the communication, but we're very obvious. We're very, I mean, we will literally look people in the eye and say, we have to go talk now.
Yeah.
We'll be back in a little while. I mean, it's not, we make no bones about the fact that we communicate with one.
You know what? I think that's great.
Yeah.
I
do too.
encourage, I try to encourage total openness. And I don't think you should be, when you're in a situation like that, if you are trying to decide with your playmate whether you want to fuck one or more other people, I think it's worthy of a private conversation. I don't think anybody's going to call you wrong.
Agreed. Although, and that's how we roll, and it works for us. There are folks out there, though, that they just move a little faster. And I have heard from friends who kind of do have a word that they use, or squeeze the knee under the table, or those types of things, when one of the or the other of the couple is just like, it's never going to happen.
Right.
And so it's kind of the veto, like, putting up the not going to happen ever, like not even undecided, like just not going to happen, period. And there are folks that, and I think even for us, we haven't had that type of experience where we've really had to just say not going to happen at all, because we do step away and have the conversation. But there are friends that have that veto signal, whatever it is, and then everything else is more about communication.
Right.
But the veto signal is the one that they're like, yeah, when we meet people and we know there's not four-way chemistry, then just cut it off right then, so that it's not wasting people's time.
And I think that comes a lot from experience too. Even in monogamous dating, the more experience you have, I talk about the importance of disqualifying people quickly.
Mm-hmm.
When you find out, the older you get, you have more experiences with more people. You figure you learn what more of your big turnoffs are, and you get better at spotting them early.
Yes, well said. Yeah.
As soon as you disqualify someone as a potential playmate, you can just move right on.
Yeah.
This is a big problem. We'll see you later.
And I'm so happy you never disqualified me. And how about you, Coop, with you and your wife? How does that work for you, the two of you?
We've done a number of meetups from the websites. We've gone on a number of first dates with people. The big difference for me is I get really paranoid before dates, and I like to try to cancel them. So because I know that about myself, I won't schedule a date unless I've had, say, extensive online talking with someone, because that's how I vet people. If they can't have a conversation with me online, and, I get that I'm probably cutting off people who just don't talk online, and which is fine. It's not like my dating pool is small.
Right.
So yes, I may be missing out on some really awesome people, and that's cool. That's fine. But I spend extensive time vetting them. I know what my wife likes. I'm very good at knowing whether or not she's going to like someone. I've never been wrong about it, in fact. So, it could happen, but it has not happened yet. So, generally speaking, when we go on a date, I've already talked to them a lot, and we do have a little sort of veto sign. Now it's been a while, so I can't remember what it was. I think it was just a knee grab under the table.
That's a good thing.
It's been a while since we've vetoed. I don't think we've ever vetoed anyone who actually made it to the date portion.
Yeah.
And do you think that's probably because you've had the conversations with them online to help?
I would say for sure, because there have been a lot of people I've eliminated through the conversation portion.
Okay.
And I mean, I get that I'm different from a lot of people in that I do want to have extensive conversations, and I ask tons of questions, and I think that turns some people off too, is I will specifically ask the important questions. I don't shy away from any of it.
Well, and anyone who would shy away from the tough questions is probably just not mentally playing in deep enough water. Because the more experienced you get, I have been asked some ridiculous questions in all kinds of ridiculous situations, but none of them ever offended me or made me think, oh, well,
right.
How dare they ask that, blah, blah, blah. Well, you're talking about, sticking dicks in people, let's see.
It takes a lot to offend you.
Well, it does take a lot. The tough one is you're actually looking to very early on in a new relationship with a couple, you have to ask are you clean?
Right.
And how often do you get tested so you know you're clean? And do you always use condoms, or do you sometimes not? You have to have these conversations, and especially at the beginning, that is a really hard conversation to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
it has to be done.
Right.
Because
Absolutely.
if you are afraid to have that conversation, that's how you're going to get something, because you're going to miss and we all live in the make-believe world where everybody always tells the truth, of course.
Right.
And if they're afraid to ask that question, they need more time with Ginger so that Ginger can guide them. Right, yeah. I should throw Coop in there too. I'm sorry.
No, hey, everybody needs more time with Ginger. I think really every swinger, when they sign up, they get their swinger card. They should have a 1 to 2 hour session with Ginger. I think that's very important.
Where do I sign up now?
At Life on the Swing Set.
There you go. That sounds like fun.
I think we'd all be better off.
Well, we're this interview has been a lot of fun so far. We're rolling up on the hour mark, so I know Ginger is going to need to go fairly shortly. We had so much fun. Actually, this is both a good thing and a bad thing. We didn't really get to all the topics that I wanted to cover, so I thought I'd
come back.
That'd be great. We'd love to have you back, and I can do this swinging thing as maybe a 2-part, and maybe get with you again next week or the week after, and just continue the conversation.
That would
awesome.
be great.
That sounds awesome.
And of course, Cooper, I did not hear you mention when JV asked that question about do you have links. You, of course, did not mention yours, so we have to mention that.
Yes, please give your. I will say this before we finish this, which is now swinging part 1. So before we wrap up the interview, Cooper and Ginger, as I said at the beginning, are part of the team that does Life on the Swing Set, which is a sex-positive, swinging-oriented podcast.
Mm-hmm.
They do a great show over there, and I am officially, because I do not consider myself an expert on the art of swinging or the swinging lifestyle or community.
It is an art.
I try to bring in experts whenever I can't justify calling myself one. So I would suggest that any of the audience out there that really is interested in exploring swinging, check out their show. And here's Cooper to plug it for you.
Okay, Life on the Swing Set is both a podcast and a blog. We collect a lot of swingers and polyamorists, and we've got some unicorns even, so that proves that they exist. Single females in the lifestyle blogging for us. We do articles. We hit a lot of the important topics that people ask about. We have an advice column, and we'll answer your questions. We'll do our best to help you, because we know that swinging can be scary if you haven't done it before, and the idea of it can be scary. And so what our whole point of existence is to reach out a friendly hand, say, it's okay, you're not a damn weirdo. Other people also like to do this really, really cool thing you can do with your partner, which is ethical non-monogamy.
Outstanding.
Well,
thank you very much for joining us, guys. And we will look forward to, like I said, continuing this conversation in a week or two whenever schedules line up, because I think we got a lot more to talk about.
Absolutely. Our
Sounds
pleasure.
fantastic.
and thank you both for taking the time out today.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
We always like to meet new, awesome, sexy people.
Absolutely.
And that pretty much brings the proceedings to a close for episode 29. I hope you guys had as much fun as we did. And as always, please feel free to join in the conversation by posting anonymously on sexualdarkage.com, emailing jvaltheros@gmail.com, or calling into the listener line at 517-376-3116. I'd also like to thank Liam for making an awesome suggestion that became our new group on FetLife. So if you're already on FetLife or thinking about taking the plunge, stop on by the Ending the Sexual Dark Age group, where we will, moving forward, have all kinds of entertaining conversations about all kinds of filthy shit. As usual, Shara and I are available on Facebook, Twitter, etc. through links on the websites, and if you're enjoying the show, please slide us a good rating on iTunes. In a couple of weeks, Cooper and Ginger will be joining us again to continue our foursome. And if anyone out there swimming through the inner tubes has any questions for them, or issues you'd like us to make sure we cover, we will be more than happy to do so. Just email, post, etc. Until next time, this be me, JV Altheros, reminding you that sex is one of the greatest things in life, and there is always room for better.